I'm Linda Greenfield Silberstein. I'm 79 and a half years old, almost. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, January 14th, 1942.
I'm Sylvain Silberstein. I'm almost 80 years old. I was born in 1941 in Antwerp, Belgium.
I had an amazing childhood. My mother was one of 5 children. My father was one of 9 children. And every block was an aunt and uncle and cousins galore. And I had the zechut, the honor to be on the younger end, one of the youngest cousins. I am the youngest of 3 sisters, 2 beautiful older sisters. I was kind of the ugly duckling, but my sisters, they were gorgeous, in and out. Just coming from this amazingly big, large family, and Baba, she's over there on the wall. My Aunt Elaine made that picture, and she was the matriarch of the family. She was my mother's stepmother and my father's mother. See, my mother's mother died, and my father's father died. So my mother's father married my father's mother. So my mother's my aunt, and my father's my uncle, and I'm my own cousin. But that's really not true. Anyway, my parents were stepbrother and sister. And Baba lived with us in the house with her youngest child, Anshul, my father, until she passed away on my 6th birthday. So she was very, very prominent in my life for the early part, because she just loved me unconditionally. And that was very, very major. Another thing was having all these amazing friends. And our house, every Friday night, the whole family would gather around the dining room table for like an Oneg Shabbat, what we would call that, an Oneg Shabbat, because everybody wanted to see Baba. She sat at the head of the table, and all the aunts, uncles, and cousins would come and visit. And my mom, the saint that she was, she just would prepare the most delicious treats and bake, and wonderful, wonderful things would abound. And she set the tone. My mother and father set the tone for a very happy, healthy, psychologically healthy, I think, now looking back at it. I didn't always feel that way, but now that I look back at it, just a very happy, healthy, good, very Jewish, very, very Jewish childhood. I felt extremely loved from all over. If my mom wasn't home and I had to go home from school if I was sick, Aunt Helen would take me. Or we'd go to Aunt Lulu and Uncle Dave's house, or Uncle Sam and Aunt Ray's house, or everybody, just tons of cousins and aunts and uncles all around. And we lived in Borough Park, Brooklyn, which was a great place to grow up. Just a wonderful, wonderful place to grow up. I had tons of friends and just happy, happy.
To contrast that, my beginnings were in Antwerp, Belgium, at the onset of World War II. It had started, and the Germans had invaded Belgium and Antwerp. And my father, unfortunately, was taken to work camps and concentration camp eventually when I was 6 months old. So I never got to really meet my father and know my father. And my mother, in her wisdom, since she was a survivor of not just an instinct, she somehow had the knack to survive, had us leave, and we were in hiding for most of the war. First in an apartment in Antwerp with a housekeeper, and then following that in a farm in the countryside somewhere between Antwerp and Brussels. The farmers had children and grandchildren there. So there was a son and a younger son, a son, a grandchild, and then 2 little grandchildren. One was my age. Actually, we met when we went back. My mother used to tell me that I always played with this little girl. This girl was born with some handicap type thing. She wound up eventually getting amputations and stuff like that. And so that was their handicapped grandchild. So whenever she cried, I got hit because I figured I did something to her. So, we all took it with a grain of salt. So when we visited the second one, and after all the beginning, she said, yeah, you always used to get it. She confirmed what my mother had said all along. My mother used to call the lady who hit us, the wife of the farmer, Dicka Lane. So that means fat lane. But Dicka means fat and Lane is her name. So all the kids thought that was Grandma Frida's biting humor. She called her Fat Lane because she was fat. But when we were at the first house, the man that, finally started talking to us and his daughter, and, we got everything rolling. Oh, yeah, I'm Dicka Lane. Everybody called her Dicka Lane. So they all had to apologize because, they blamed poor Grandma of being just a nasty old ditty, but she wasn't. That's what they called her, was Dicka Lane. Anyway, and they took me to church. I mean, I was one of theirs. There was no difference. So I wasn't aware. My mother was aware, and my mother, again, as I said, she was a survivor. The farm was located near, if anybody's familiar with the Battle of the Bulge, and so that's where the Americans won their first victory, and then the Germans came back. However, so when the Americans had liberated, quote unquote, that part of Belgium, in the little town called Nieuwkerken, the people were putting up American flags, and my mother begged the farmers not to put up any flags, just to act normal, because she was afraid, and what she was afraid of happened. Germans counterattacked, took over that part. When the Germans marched in, wherever there was an American flag hanging, they shot. So, so it was her survival instinct that kept us alive. Other than that, I have a vague recollection of where we slept and, the people there and the farm. They grew rhubarb. I remember rhubarb. Otherwise, they're very, very scant memories. After the war, I think the pleasantest memory I had was that I was in an orphanage for a short period of time, and myself and one other child my age, I guess, had a living relative. I had a mother and he had a grandfather that was left after the war. All the other children there had nobody that was left. So I guess that was exciting at the time. It felt very fortunate. But despite all that, I think I had a relatively normal childhood. I remember playing in school, and we went to a Hebrew day school by probably that's the best way to call it, but we spoke Ivrit, and we had a lot of quote-unquote Israelis who had come to actually rescue everybody. Most of the orphanage wound up in Israel after a while. So one of my best memories is one of being on a ship coming from Europe or from Belgium to New York. It was called the New Amsterdam. And I never had such a good time as running around the ship. And I was around 9.5 at the time. And it was just a pleasant memory. And then the next part of life was the trauma of acclimating to places where you don't know the language. I spoke many languages, but English was not one of them. I spoke, in school we spoke Flemish, which was part of Belgium. The official language is Flemish. Friends, amongst ourselves, we spoke French, which is the northern part of Belgium speaks French. I spoke Hebrew pretty fluently because we were in a school where during those hours all you spoke was Hebrew. You didn't speak any other language. I knew a blend of Yiddish and German from home. and a few words of Polish from my aunts and uncles. So those were the languages. So when I came here, none of those languages did me too much good because they were not exactly too useful. When I got here, instead of Ivrit, they spoke Ivris, which was like, huh? You know, what are they doing? And I didn't know any of the sports. I mean, I was the guy that's left sitting at the sidelines because, you know, doesn't know what he's doing. The only thing I could relate to was the food. I'd never had such good food. So I ate to my heart's content. I don't know how much weight I gained, but I gained a lot of weight that summer. And when I went back to school, I was 4th grade, and they put me in a 1st grade thing for English. And in Hebrew, I was like way ahead, but I didn't really know the lingo, so to speak. But there were there were a bunch of kids that were very nice to me the whole process. And by that summer, I think I was fully acclimated. And like a normal, I had friends, and school was nice. And everything else after that was, I think, pretty much routine. We went to a sister and brother school, so I went to Eitz Chaim, and Linda went to Shalamis, which we kind of hung out together. So I guess Linda's first memory of me is in a candy store, but we kind of hung out in packs, a bunch of boys and a bunch of girls, and we kind of did things together. So that's how we met to begin with.
In those days, unlike now, in a modern Orthodox Jewish day school, in my school, Shalamis, which still exists to this day, every girl had to ask a boy to an 8th grade prom. I can't even handle it. I just can't believe that that's the way it was. I can't handle it now. But it was so innocent. We were such innocents. And so I asked the cutest boy in that class, not just the cutest, but the most mature, a boy that there was just something hidden. There was a mystery about him. He wasn't just like all the other kids, obviously. He seemed more mature and more serious, and just something that I was very attracted to. I must have been very wise at age 12.
What happened?
And so I asked Sylvain, would he be my prom date? But don't forget, we all hung out together. It wasn't like dating. And the prom was like just a party. You got dressed up in your white graduation dress and whatever. And that's how it started. And he said yes. We were very liberated. The girl asked the boy. I mean, that doesn't even happen now. But that's what it was. It was a very wholesome party chaperoned by the teachers, and we were 13 at the time.
That's because Eitz Chaim didn't have a prom.
Eitz Chaim didn't have a prom. And I guess if the Judaic study departments would have thought about it, they might not have allowed it. But it was like a davar yadua. It was something that this is what the Shalamis girls did, and that's the way it was.
So that's how we met. Pheromones?
What? What did you say? Pheromones?
I know, Linda was always smiling. She was really, as outward as she is now, she was very bubbly and nice, as opposed to my morose being.
You wasn't morose.
So,
You weren't
no,
ever
I wasn't.
morose.
I wasn't morose, but you know, it was so contrast.
He was still waters run deep. You know, I was like foaming at the mouth, and he was like a lot of depth.
And I did have a lot of things buried in me, but it had nothing to do with anybody else. You know, it's just my own little battle. And so it was kind of refreshing to have somebody who's, you know, out there. So it was very nice. That was the initial attraction.
You know, just thinking back, a memory is being like just how do you say that? Awakened. A memory is coming back. And I just remember the other boys in the class, we were a whole group of kids, but they seemed so silly. It was an age of wearing like fake leather jackets. And the boys, to show affection to the girls, they would like grab our belts off the leather jackets and hit us. But Sylvain, he was like in a class by himself. He was just mature. And I like that. He was grown up. He was very grown up and mature and just not silly. He wasn't silly.
It'd be impressive just to do nothing. That's great. We were together for a while, and then I went to high school. So when I came back from the summer, I guess.
From camp.
I found religion. So, I stopped hanging out, basically. I was riding my bike one day, and I passed your house, correct?
And I was sitting on the front porch.
And she kind of spied me, and she ran out. She said,
"Hi!" I had my friends, he had his friends. He was very frum, and, that's the way it was. But I did say hi, and then he said hi back.
Strange thing. I don't know what made me do that. It's probably pheromones again.
Pheromones.
Things took off after that, I think. I don't think just for a brief period of time, because when your parents made you go out with other people.
Right. We just rekindled a friendship, is what we did. Nothing. We rekindled a friendship. And by the end of the senior year, we were an item. We went on the Staten Island ferry. That was a nickel. What else did we do? We took a bus ride, whatever was cheap. We took a Greyhound bus ride, remember where to?
Right, Lakewood?
Lakewood, New Jersey.
Right.
It was beautiful there. And the windows
It was considered the country then. It was really lake wood, beautiful forests and everything.
Sylvain was still into his learning, and I was still like a high school girl. And it was just all, pretty innocent, I'd say. But by the end of that senior year, he gave me a beautiful necklace with my Hebrew name, Leah, on it at graduation. I don't know, it just felt like it was going places.
It was progressing.
Always. When I saw him again on the bike coming down my street, if I jumped out and said hi, it was because I was really interested.
I heard the hi because I was probably interested also. So,
By the first year of college. By then, I think we were smitten. It was like not quite as innocent. It was like going places, By then we were, right?
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, I think by that time we were definite that we were going to be, and there was nothing that was going to stop us.
There were parents that wanted to stop us on both sides because we were very young. We were at that time, 17, 18? When we first started, I started Brooklyn College, and Sylvain started Yeshiva University, and we were very young. And on both sides, we had a lot of parental opposition. In fact, my parents once forced me to go out with somebody else on a blind date, and my parents were wonderful, but they just didn't want me to be hurt, and they just, and Sylvain's mother and stepfather, nobody was for this union, nobody at that time. And so I did, and I was just so miserable. I remember sitting in Carnegie Hall with this guy that liked, the cello, and I got out of that date and I called you and I said, never again will I be forced to do this. And of course my mom apologized and my dad apologized, and they just had our best interest at heart, but I think that just even cemented it more.
I think they both gave in after a while.
Our parents?
Yeah.
Right. I think we proposed to each other.
We're on the same page. I think we proposed to each other. We knew that we were going to
We just knew that this was going to happen. We just weren't, we loving each other, and we weren't going to be separated for anything under the sun.
I don't think we ever did this formal proposal route.
Right.
You know, I didn't get on my knees.
No.
I don't think.
Could you imagine getting on your knees?
Well, no
Right.
way. I wouldn't be able to get up.
Oh, did we have a wedding? By that time, everybody was excited about us. We were the cute couple. We were the cute couple, right? And it was a beautiful wedding at a place that no longer exists, the Broadway Central Hotel, June 13th, 1961.
I had a blast. I think Linda also had a blast.
It was so much fun. We were the first of our friends to get married. One of the first. Actually, not the absolute first, but one of the very first of our friends to get married. So everybody was really into it. It was just the liveliest, most beautiful wedding, the most beautiful, happy, happy wedding in the world.
Well, it was. It was very nice. Don't sweat the little things. That's number one. It's not worth it.
Right. And always know that you're a team, no matter what. Never forget what started you off first. There's always going to be ups and downs. And like people say, marriage is so difficult, it's so hard. It's not so hard. It's not so hard. Just know, keep that spark alive. Keep that spark. Even though we're almost married 60 years, we still have that spark. At least I do.
I do too.
I forced him to say that.
As sparkling as it was then, it's sparkling now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just remember what started you off together. And you're a team. Just remember you're a team. And have lots of children. That's the best.
I agree with all of that. The other thing is just important to realize that there are two individuals here, and there's got to be give and take, because otherwise there's a battle of egos and it doesn't work. So even though everything may not be to your liking,
right.
Take a deep breath. Go on.
The way they used to tell us back in the 50s and 60s in Ladies' Home Journal, back in the old day, when your husband comes in, fry some onions. It has wisdom to it, because the good smell make him feel wanting to come home to an inviting home. All those crazy things that sound so anti-feminist. There's a lot of wisdom to it. Create a happy home. Happy wife, happy life.
We were 23 when we had our first, right?
Right. I was like ready to have a baby on day one. It was like, this is going to cement our marriage. This is going to be the greatest. But Sylvain was starting medical school, and that was a whole other chavaya. That was just, we were in it together. This was like a team effort. In fact, in his medical school, they interviewed the spouse. I had to be interviewed too, just to make sure you were on the same page. And so...
well, that it shouldn't be a source of conflict, then
it was
obviously it's hard to be a good student if you're busy fighting all the time.
So, we did wait till our first, our beloved, wonderful Risa was born at the end of
second year.
Your second year of medical school, right? And she was Risa Joy, and a joy, her name is, and just terrific. And then shortly thereafter, we had our delightful, spunky little Dawn, 14 months later. And I don't know how we did it with medical school, with my working part-time. I was teaching Hebrew in a Talmud Torah. And I don't know how we did it, but you could do anything when you're young. Anything.
Nobody thought that you can't do anything, It's like, hey, just do it.
Just have a baby, have another baby, don't think so much about it, just do it. 2.5 years later, after Sylvain's internship, when we moved to the Papago Indian Reservation, we kind of had interesting beginnings. So then Adam was born. So it was Risa, Dawn, Adam within under 3 years. We had 3 children under 3 years. And Adam was born in Tucson, Arizona, on the Papago Indian Reservation. Our first boy, we were so excited, the best. Dr. Carstensen.
Yeah.
He said,
See, made it a mystery, kept on pulling slowly. Let's see what it is. Let's see.
because in those days there was no ultrasound, you didn't know.
You know, it's a boy.
And what did you say? We were so happy. We were so happy, yeah. So like 5 years and a couple of months later when a day before, mind you, those were the days, no ultrasound, no nothing. But Sylvain was already a doctor, and he said, gosh, you're carrying so large. It's just so, I have to come to the OB with you. And he did, and they took an x-ray. In those days, there was nothing but x-ray. And sure enough, we were gonna have twins. And it was too early to have those twins. What week was it? I forgot.
32nd.
32nd week. And for 2, there was a danger. And the OB said, you just have to hold these babies for 2 more weeks, just 2 more weeks. You must be on bed rest and don't move. 2 more weeks and it'll be okay. The field of neonatology was just beginning. And so the very next day, after the doctor told me, don't move for 2 weeks, just stay still, I went into spontaneous labor. And I had these.
It was that same night.
Oh, right, actually it was that same night. It wasn't even 24 hours. So we had these twins, these tiny little 3.5-pound twins, but problem was baby A was Dovey, our little Dovey, and baby B was Mark. And he wasn't gonna, at age 24 hours of age, he had this duct that didn't close in his heart that nowadays just, they'd give medicine for
to close it.
And what else was wrong?
Well, he had surgery. He had to have surgery, and he bled into his head. And
he had like a stroke, like what we'd call a stroke, a bleed to the brain. He was this perfectly genetic human being, and he had a bleed to the brain, and he was never the same since. So, didn't know if he was going to make it. The doctor said, your babies, we don't know if either of them are going to make it.
I barely made it to the delivery. I happened to be working that night, so I was there and I saw how they both came out, so it's a very hard thing.
Marky came out blue. So, you know, just because of the prematurity and because it was a different time. Whoever sees this video, don't be scared, because it's not going to happen anymore. And Hashem was with us, and our twins survived. Our twins survived, but poor Mark, it shouldn't have been. They thought that he was going to be like a total vegetable.
So that was their prognosis to begin with, that he was vegetating, but thank God he's
our Marky.
Aware, he's our Mark, you know, but he was able to do much less than he was able to do now at the beginning. It was very, you know, even sitting, standing, walking was a challenge.
They said he will never walk, he will never talk, he will never, you know, and of course he's exceeded all those expectations. And it was a tremendous adjustment, I think, for both of us, you know, to just, especially for me, I could talk for myself, to learn that everything in life isn't perfect, and you have to love the imperfect. He was a fellow doing a fellowship in endocrinology at that same hospital. So he was the rock. He was the one. When Dovey needed a transfusion, you were the one. It was his blood. You were the one that was...
Not only was it my blood, but the nurse that was there said she couldn't put a needle in me. So I had to go stick myself to give him blood.
Why couldn't she put a needle in you?
I don't know, some weird rule that she wasn't trained to do that, and he needed blood. So we did a direct to direct. I mean, seriously, that's the way it worked.
I was taking care of my other children at home, and he was at the hospital.
I said to her, just hold my arm, please. You know, put the and I'll manage. And I did. When you have to do something, you do it.
But Sylvain, tell them what the neonatal ICU was like at that time. It was just...
No, it was a very bad place, number one, because there was very little that they could do other than supportive, treatment.
And they were supportive.
Yeah,
they were so
very
kind.
supportive and they're kind. And anyways, the whole thing is something that I don't like to think about too much, but it's, it's part, I think, of all our family's growth. Mainly, I think everybody got something positive.
In the end,
The
everybody.
silver lining, in that cloud.
So then I thought that this was it. It was such a scary ending to a pregnancy, and it was such a scary, scary thing that I thought we were done having children. And then Sylvain said to me,
maybe one more.
please, one more, just one more. 6 for every million. So we did. She was born in 1980, so it was 7 years.
6, 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah,
7
February,
years.
and she was born December 1st, so.
The end of 1980, right. And everybody loved Deanie. Everybody loved Deanie. Her sisters and brothers and just everybody just loved her and still do to this day. Like Risa will say now, Deanie could do no wrong. If she exasperates us, Risa will say, no, no, no. No, Deanie's the best. And she is. She is. She's entertaining, and we're so blessed to have her.
It's a hard one because, it's the one thing that you're called upon doing and you have no experience doing it, period. And so you kind of learn as you go. And the question is, do you get good on-the-job training or not? It's hard to tell sometimes, and sometimes the results aren't because of poor activity of the parent. It's just a little muzzle, a little luck always goes a long way. So I think we pretty much gave everybody leeway. I must say Linda was the main child rearer because I was busy working, especially
to support this whole enterprise.
Well, no, not just that, but the younger said I was an intern, a resident, a fellow, starting practice. I was busy more out of the house than in the house. So.
But he was wonderful when he was there, and even when he wasn't there. I mean, he was.
I think our kids were relatively easy.
Our kids were easy, and it was kind of just, if I think back now, I should have done this, I should have done that, But if I would give parenting advice, it's just love them up. Love them up. Maybe I didn't love them up enough. I have like Jewish mother guilt. Maybe, just love them up and let them be. And, I would say something that enhanced our lives very much was our Judaism. We were a little not as observant in the very beginning years, and then came back to it. And I think that sense of community just...
I think it's a very valuable asset, and we've gone through the other way, and we definitely know that when all is said and done,
like my father told me,
it doesn't take the place of
Shabbos.
some solid.
Shabbos
and
is
as you
beautiful.
get older and you work and you enjoy your time, family. It's an obligatory family time. It's a way that you're a family unit all the time, as opposed to everybody running in different directions. There's no carpool to a soccer game. There's, just
You're talking about Shabbos.
Shabbos, yeah.
Shabbos is the key. Shabbos is key.
Yeah. Ultimately, everything else falls into place also. So it's meaningful.
This is our interpretation. Of course, other people might think differently, but this is how we feel.
So it's a wholesome atmosphere, even though we have some rebellious kids amongst us. But it's, overall, I think it was much more meaningful. I think upbringing. people can do whatever they decide to do afterwards as long as they have at
The
least
tools.
the tools to handle life, and I think they did. My biggest regret is that I wasn't home. You know, I mean, I was away a lot, so I didn't.
But you took Adam to Little League, you took
Yeah,
Dovey to Little League.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but that's,
you learned
know,
them, you taught them their bar mitzvah parshas,
Yeah.
you were very there, please. You were
No, but
there.
it was, you know, I was in absentia.
Just the way the circumstances were. But it was I didn't work, so I was just lady of leisure in that sense, raising the children. 30 beautiful, beautiful, beautiful grandchildren. The best. The best.
I agree. They're all sweet. That's our legacy.
One Hitler. This is the best answer to Hitler. Sylvain wasn't supposed to be.
6 kids and how many spouses? So that's 11, 67 plus 11. And then also
The grandchildren's
the grandchildren's spouses.
spouses.
So there's at least 6 of them, 7?
So let's see.
So plus 9.
I lost count.
It's a lot.
How many?
I don't know. 'Cause we figured out that if we're talking about getting doing something either for our 60th or our 80th birthdays, whichever.
60th
both.
anniversary.
Right, 60th anniversary or 80th birthday. And we figured out that if we had everybody in the same room, we'd have over 80 people already to begin with. So I came for my endocrine training. That was in 1972, right? 1972. But we had been out west in Arizona from 68 to 70. We were going to stay out west, but then because of circumstances, was it Adam that got sick? Yeah, it was Adam that got sick. And you got sick, and Adam got sick. We had the mothers come out to help, the grandmothers, but the mothers. And I said, you know, if every time something happens, we're going to have rescue missions from the East Coast. So
Let's move to the East Coast.
Let's go back.
And
but
we
after
did.
2 years there, it didn't.
At the time, we lived on the Papago Indian Reservation. That was a very interesting part of our lives.
Anyway, so I decided to do my endocrine training here with the knowledge that we were probably going to stay here. So that was 1972.
We were very brave, because we were diehard New Yorkers. We were very, very brave, now that I think of it.
We looked at different communities, but I worked in Harbor Generals in Carson. So we decided to move to South Bay, and we lived in Palos Verdes, which was not too terribly Jewish to begin with, as my wife likes to say, for goyim and for horses. But it was nice at the time, and we actually started a Chabad there. But after a couple of years, it was obvious that if you wanted to send kids to day schools and stuff like that, couldn't live there because there was no such thing. So we looked in LA proper, and we looked at the city, and we looked at Pico, and we looked at the valley. And at the time, this was the valley. That was the only place. We looked at schools in particular, and we really liked AMEC the best out of all of them, because the other ones seemed too formal, too rigid. So anyway, that's how we wound up here.
I listen.
And I don't talk, so that's great. It's the greatest combination.
I'm obedient.
Sometimes. Convenient. I don't know. It's, we have we kind of have complementary kind of personalities, so I'm not the fuzzy one.
Warm and fuzzy?
Well,
Yes, you are. You're warm and fuzzy.
To the kids, probably, but, but I'm not that outgoing. I'm the shyer one, quote unquote. And so I think kind of complement each other, especially with kids, family, etc.
Sometimes it's not opposites attract, and sometimes opposites attract. It just works. We kind of like each other a lot. We like very comfy with each other. We couldn't live without each other. We just that's how we come. Gosh.
Nothing. Our frail bodies don't allow us to do too many things. Actually, as trite as it sounds, we like to spend time with our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids. That gives me the biggest joy.
And me too.
You know, so.
Me too. We're on this exact same page.
Actually, you know, that's, with the numbers, it could be a full-time job if we wanted to do that.
We have friends.
Friends, you know, I don't feel we are missing anything. I mean, just because we don't go out to eat a lot and stuff like that, I don't miss it.
When it's time to, when we decide to go out to eat, we say, we have Shabbos leftovers. They're so good. Why are we running? We're just like kind of content. We do like to travel. We love to take the trips that we often do, like to Israel. That's amazing. We had an amazing trip to Europe with some of the children and grandchildren. That was amazing. We're not total duds. Mostly.
Well, I don't know. I'm still working full time, so I really don't feel like doing too much on a regular weeknight, because it's getting harder to, you know, to work and not be exhausted by the end of the day. So
we used to go in our cool days to the Village Gate and hear Nina Simone and Shlomo Carlebach, and we used to do that. Now we're just happy, like Grandma Etta would say, we're just happy to stay put.
You know, I think the hardest thing was Mark. I mean, it was the twins. I mean, that's the hardest thing I think any individual ever has to face. And it caused strife in one way or another for different reasons. And but eventually we got beyond that, and you know, we got over it. When we decided that it was time for Mark to come home, we had a lot of community support. He was getting weird kind of exercises and stuff like that, and they had volunteers and shifts doing it. So that's the importance of community, you know, importance of, I think, a religious community. It allows you to deal with a lot of things that sometimes are very difficult to deal with. So I think it's one single thing. You know, all the other things are minor compared to that. I'm trying to think. Probably either the first child's wedding or the first grandchild's wedding.
The first child's wedding was like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
By the second child's wedding, it was just as exciting, but I felt more present, you know? And then, you know, yeah, he's right, the wedding, just marrying off your children, raising your children. And I'm gonna say something that sounds so, I don't know, I hope it rings true, but it's not an event, but it's just having the bracha that Hashem gives us to grow older together. It's just, you're just at a more mellow time, and you just could sit back and appreciate. Just so thankful to God for every blessing that He's bestowed on us. I don't know if that's like a great, you know, moment, but it's just this period of time.
The whole 60 years or plus, it's been a great, you know, I think it's been a real good experience with obviously a lot of knocks along the way, but that's part of life. I think one of the most exciting things we did, though, was that summer trip that we did 2 years ago. I think that was
trace Sylvain's roots.
One of the more meaningful things we've ever done. Emotional, meaningful.
Thank God we did it. It was because of Sylvain. He wanted to do it, and he was the initiator, and then Adam took over.
Adam was the
Amazing.
facilitator. He's the one who made it happen. Him and Tuvia. We spent 2 days in Krakow, and with the travel, it wound up and two days in Belgium.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Our nephew Adam Furziger, who is a professor of Jewish history at Bar Ilan, and this is kind of his specialty.
He got us all set up with an outfit that was capable of housing us, feeding us, transporting us, doing everything. And also he agreed that if we allow him to take his wife, he'll be because we had asked him originally, he said, no, he'll find somebody. So that was another meaningful part of it, because it was presented from a standpoint of somebody who understood who we were, who knew us well.
He was our tour guide. He led our tour.
So, and again, 2 days, and it was 2.5 or what in Poland, because the first day didn't count, because we'd just flown all day. And Poland was action-packed, and one of the things was to go to Auschwitz, because that's where my father had been killed, and see if we found the latest trace. Now, Dini had done that once before, so she knew where to go.
She was so amazing.
I don't mean where to go. We had a tour. You can't go wandering around, but she knew where the Hall of Records is, where she went and found additional documents. She'd found some before. So I learned a lot. We had all made an assumption that my father had been survived a long time there. We found out that his last whereabouts, for example, were in August of 43, and he'd gotten there in November of 42. So it tells me that he at least survived for 6 or 8 months, which is, we didn't think that was the case. And we don't know exactly when he died, because the only thing we found was he was taken to a quote-unquote hospital, and he had an x-ray done. That's what they have a record of, that he had an x-ray done. Nothing else. So we still don't know when he died, but at least we presume it's somewhere around that period of time. And we were all able to relate what that was like, see where it was, and it's very, very emotional. So, and then Belgium was reliving where my childhood memories, and I surprisingly remembered many a thing, and so we did a walking tour. Everything was set up real nicely. Anyway, we figured out how to go from the restaurant to where I lived, to the house where I grew up in, and we saw it. It was amazing. So it was very meaningful. And everybody shared it, and everybody saw where they came from.
Strong, my rock, my love.
Do her. She does everything.
No, you do everything.
Do her. I'm quiet. I don't do anything. You do everything. And emotionally solid.
Gosh.
Of course. Just remember who I was, period. Remember my name. Remember to say Kaddish.
Ditto. I agree. Everything he's saying.
The memories of us, is whatever they have ingrained in them. And
I hope it brings a smile
yeah,
and a tear.
And also that, as I said at Auschwitz, to remember where they came from, and to remember to continue what's really special, even though they may not think so at the moment. But it is. And remember to say Kaddish for us.
We love them so much. Just so blessed, so blessed. We are so blessed. How do we deserve to be so blessed? I don't know. But thank Hashem.
It's nice. It's very
all
thankful.
Hashem. It's all Hashem.
When you go back to the origins and see what it should have been, actually, what came, it's just mind-boggling. To even try to count the descendants is mind-boggling. So I feel that, from a life standpoint, I feel content. I don't feel sure I could have done more, I could have done less, but no, no.
If I was
regrets.
only good in math, I could have had such a career. But no, I wouldn't trade anything for the life that I had. Nothing, really.
It's great. I had a good support on my side through medical
too.
school, through everything.
Me too. Me too.
Unfortunately, gave her all the responsibility.
No.
Yeah,
not
yeah. But I know she came through, so that's all that counts. Right?
I don't know. You came through.
Both support each other.
We did, yeah. We're good friends. I really feel like our love story is our life story because we were sweethearts at age 12. Most of our lives, what did you say? We're going to be 80.
We're going to be 80, and it's only 12 years that we worked, 11 years that we didn't know each other.
Right. So our love story is our life story. Our life story is our love story. They're intertwined.
We survived.
We survived. Do not show that. Look, here's a lot of grandchildren.